After the proclamation of Georgia's independence, the first official visit of the head of the sovereign state of Georgia took place in the Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran was one of the first to recognize Georgia's independence and open an embassy in Tbilisi. It must be noted also that first official agreement in the history of independent Georgia after the collapse of Soviet Union was signed with Iran. The current president of Iran, Hassan Rouhani, visited Georgia twice, first as the first deputy speaker of the Islamic Consultative Assembly and after as the secretary of Supreme National Security Council. During the periods of the presidency of Mohammad Khatami, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and Hassan Rouhani, high-level visits between the two countries no longer took place. During this period, high-level exchange visits with neighboring Armenia and Azerbaijan were carried out several times, however. Only last year, Georgian PM Kvirikashvili visited Tehran by official visit. The Iranian government always reaffirms its adherence to the principles of respect of internationally recognized borders, territorial integrity, and non-interference in the internal affairs of other states. In fact, Iran can be easily considered as a territorial, stable state with its well-established borders. In this regard, Iran's position towards 2008 Russo-Georgia war deserves attention. Without deciding to condemn aggression of Russia in Georgia, Iran at the same time has officially declared the support of sovereignty and territorial integrity of any country and has emphasized the fidelity of the international standards and agreements. In general, Tehran has been presenting the August war as an object of listen to the countries of the Persian Gulf. Georgia had made a mistake since it took the U.S. promises for granted, and now it has to pay an immense price for its naivety. Therefore, the regional countries will be better off establishing closer links with Iran in the security sphere, rather than looking towards the unpredictable America. Concerning conflicts, Iran considers that only regional actors, Russia, Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia, and no Western powers must be involved in it. On the other hand, the rapprochement of Georgia with Iran does not correspond to the Russian interests, and Russian officials tried several times to show to Iranians that Georgia is an ally of the United States and it will be used by Americans in case of military action against Iran. In general, Russia lost its credibility and political influence in Georgia, but still have instruments for influence. And Iran is obliged to consider the factor of Russia in its relations with Georgia. In the most generous interpretation, is said to become Georgia as a normal partner to Tehran, which Iran already enjoys with its common neighbors such as Turkey, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. But since Georgia is considered as a particularly close partner of the United States, that attracted intense attention of Iran. According to the famous WikiLeaks information, Georgia tries to build relations with Iran. Georgia agreed with many of our arguments about the policy of Iran and was ready to put these questions directly to the Iranians. Georgia is still faced with the last of Tehran's anger when, a few years ago, the U.S. was granted an Iranian smuggler. At the same time, Georgia cannot alienate an influential regional neighbor and chief trading partner, wrote former ambassador of the United States in Georgia, John Bass. In sum, Iranian politics toward Georgia is determined by following factors. First, Iran as a big territorial state has no pretension towards neighbors, including Georgia. Second, Iran does not want that the US and NATO gain influence in the Caucasus, for which reason it supports Russia's interests in the region. The third, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline does not correspond to the Iranian economic interests and diminishes the importance of Iran as a transit route for Caspian oil and natural gas. Fourth, Iran is interested in Georgian transit routes to Black Sea and Europe. And fifth, Iran drew attention to the Muslim minorities of Georgia, which causes competition with Turkey and recently with Salafis from different Arab countries. Despite the declared good neighborhood approach, Georgia has nowadays no close ties with Iran. Western orientation of Georgia and its complicated relations with Russia certainly does not help the rapprochement with Iran. Georgian-Iranian relations can be considered as cold good neighborhood. This cold good neighborhood is reflected also in Iranian-Georgian economic relations. Despite the proclaimed desire of establishing more close economic contacts with Georgia, Iran cannot compete with major political partners of Georgia, Turkey, US and European Union. This is a quite big gap between actual and potential economic relations between two countries. After those revolution, the number of Iranian businesses in Georgia increased due to the attraction of foreign investments, facilitation of business initiatives, registration of companies, immigration rules, and citizenship regulations. In 2008, relations between two countries hit a low when Georgia extradited an Iranian citizen to the US to face charges related to breaking the arms embargo against Iran, an action that Tehran assessed as an anti-Iranian act. After this incident, relations between two countries were frozen for a short time, but soon Iran and Georgia reached an agreement of visa-free regime. Visa-free regime for Iranian citizens has been introduced in January 2011. Georgia became one of the 14 countries of the world where Iranians could travel without visa. In this situation, Georgia became one of the favorite destinations for Iranian tourists. Visa-free regime also helped to the intensification of economic relations. It can be said that nearly after 100 years, Georgia again became attractive for Iran as a country adherent to the free economy and Western values. A country which is historically, culturally, and geographically close to Iran, which enabled Iranians of modest income to start their business and give Western education to their children. No less important was for a major portion of Iranian Georgia's prospects to the interest for EU membership. Georgia was once again recorded connecting Iranians with Europe. There started a boom of obtaining Georgian residence permits in Iran. Free immigration of Iranians to Georgia and the increase of the number of Iranian companies aroused certain discontent among the Western partners of Georgia. They had doubts that the Islamic Republic managed to avoid Western economic and banking sanctions and was engaged in money laundering activities, namely via certain companies registered in Georgia. In July 2013, Georgia unilaterally canceled the visa-free regime for Iranians. According to Georgian officials, this measure had temporary character. Before this decision, Iranian and joint Iranian-Georgian companies based in Georgia were accused for laundering money of Iranian state-sponsored organization, as the Corps of Islamic Revolutionary Guards. As it stressed in the Wall Street Journal, Iranian businessmen are flocking to Georgia, a long-time U.S. ally in the Caucasus region, to pursue profits evaporating in much of the world. As a result, several accounts of Iranian companies and citizens are frozen in Georgian banks. Georgian authorities denied any connection between this decision and the above-mentioned article or the pressure of European and American partners. The unilateral decision of Georgian authorities to introduce a visa regime for the Iranian citizens was assessed negatively by the official sides of Iran, as well as by Iranian political scientists, businessmen, and ordinary citizens. After the nuclear agreement in February 2016, Georgia reintroduced visa-free regime. To some, it can't be said that Iran and Georgia have close economic relations. While closer ties with Iran have bolstered imports and encouraged some investment, Iran's overall impact on Georgian economy is minimal. Another aspect of Iran-Georgian relations is cultural and religious activities of Iranians in Georgia. Concerning study of Iranian students in Georgia, there is still problem with the recognition of Georgian diplomas in Iran. About religion, in eastern Georgia, the major Muslim group is Azerbaijanis. The competition of Turkish and Iranian organization is most noticeable among Azerbaijani population of the eastern Georgia, which, through the low level of religious education, sometimes can't even distinguish Sunni and Shia branches. Iranian and Turkish charitable organizations tried to convert them on their religion. Recently, the propagation of the Salafi Islam also created obstacles for Iranian and Turkish organizations. Logically, the common bond of Shia Islam should bring Iran and the Republic of Azerbaijan closer. Yet in practice, this has been a source of estrangement between them because the secular government of Azerbaijan has been wary of Iran's influence among its Shia population. Such obstacle in Georgia is less visible, and consequently, there is much more possibility for Iranians to propagate the Iranian version of Islam. The collation and analysis of the major aspects of Iranian-Georgian relations demonstrates that because of the obligations towards its Western partners, Georgian authorities were sometimes obliged to take undesirable and even harmful steps for Iran. Georgian side called them temporary acts and stressed that in the case of lifting of sanction, Georgia also will review its unpleasant decisions for Iran. Iranian side, despite the critical assessments, treated with understanding these situations, considering that Georgia was not independent in making such decisions. In the case of full return of Iran on the international arena, economic relations between two countries can be developed in three directions. The increase of travelers, it's not concerns only Georgia, but also Iran, which has great touristic potential, intensification of business contacts, investments. Georgia can propose to Iran liberal and stable business environment. There are different investment opportunities, hydropower, tourism, real estate, etc. Georgia can become a transit road for Iranian goods by highways and rail to Georgian Black Sea ports. In long-term perspective, extension of pipelines via Georgian territory is not excluded. It's even possible to extend Black Sea fiber optic line. Considering Georgia's favorable geographical position and Iran's rich energy resources and commercial economic potential, in the case of full lifting of sanctions, planning and realization of new important projects in the mid-term perspective, Georgia can become a bridge between Europe and Iran. It concerns the transit of Iranian energy resources and the shipping of Iranian cargoes towards several destinations via Georgian territory. At the same time, it must be stressed that Iran does not have a serious role in South Caucasus energy sphere. The project of connection of the gas pipeline Iran-Armenia to Georgia with a further exit to Europe can appear prospective. However, its realization is complicated by technical and financial problems. It will be necessary the involvement of extra-regional actors, what Iran rigidly opposes to. But first of all, it does not correspond to Russia's interests. The decline of oil prices does not help also to the planning of new pipeline projects. So in this direction, cooperation of these countries appears non-realistic in the mid-term perspective. Tense situation in the Middle East region, when even some regions of Turkey became unsafe for the move of the Iranian trailers, obliged Iran to search alternative routes. Iranian officials highly appreciated potential of Georgian ports of Batumi and Poti, but they were not made any steps for the use of this potential for mutual benefits. In the case of the connection of Iranian and Azerbaijani railways in Astana and after to Georgian railway and ports, the possibility of significant increase of the rail freight turnover can be created. The project highway from Tbilisi to Armenia seems also very important. The signing of the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement by Georgia and the European Union and the possibility for major investment in Georgia creates positive opportunities for the business community of the Islamic Republic of Iran to consider introducing joint products to the European Union market. At the end, it must be stressed that considering the general instability in the Middle Eastern region, especially in Syria and Iraq, and Russia's active participation in these processes, contradictions among Iranian leaders about countries' relations with the West, it is only possible to make extremely cautious assumption about the future of Iranian-Georgian relations. Thank you very much.